First off, who actually knows what Ethereum is? I see some hands. That's very good. Great, great. For those who don't know, it's one of the blockchain frameworks. So Bitcoin is the one that started out in like way back when, 2009, I guess. And you can pay people with it. Ethereum is more a development framework. You can create smart contracts and you can actually create dApps on it. So that's decentralized apps, dApps. This does not work yet. Oh, that's fine. We'll use the pointers. So yeah, I'm here. I actually work at oneUp, which is a startup. I'm a business developer. Sometimes I use team lead. Sometimes I use different function titles because people require it of me. I just work at the startup and I do my best to create cool stuff. What do we do at oneUp? We create new products for companies, big and small. We do this using startup thinking, quote unquote. It's something that sometimes has a trademark symbol, but I don't think it's actually trademarked yet, so please don't steal it. What we do is we first off, we get into conversation with a client and we think of, well, what do you really want? Because nowadays often people come to us and they say, we want to do something with blockchain. And then I say, yes, okay, sure. Do you maybe want a gold sprinkled blockchain or do you want a chocolate variant? And then they say, I don't know, just give me the best one. So then we get into this conversation of what do they actually want. That's the left-hand side there, design sprint and validation. We use Google Venture Design Sprint a lot. So we sit down with the client for 1 week and we think of, well, what would be the most unique part of this solution? We build it and we test it out on Friday and see if it actually works. So we have some interviews. That's really out left field for most of our clients. So they don't really, they just think of things, they build it and they just present it and that's it. Now we actually have them talk with customers, which is new for them. I usually don't do that. Once it gets into my or our team, it's a blockchain. Actually, it's a solution with usually could have a blockchain component. That's the most fair thing to say. And then we build the MVP for this. So in our team, we get to build a lot of very cool Ethereum-based MVPs. This is something we did, well, I think we did it 10 times by hand, creating everything. And then we thought, okay, so we are advertising lots of cool, new innovative stuff. Why don't we innovate our own process? We need to do this better, right? So we can automate it. Oh yeah, we use lots of cool emerging technologies. Most of these are just made up by me. But the blockchain and smart contract things in the middle, that's actually things we have experience with. And chatbots, actually, because there's one status.im. It's a party we worked with together. They do a lot of things with chatbots. So that's a legally picture I can use there. The rest I would like to find out. This morning there was this really nice talk, this introduction talks about the new paradigms and paradigm shifts. So we have this new shiny object here. It's blockchain and we use it. Spoiler, it might just be part of a new paradigm because, well, blockchain is not the solution to everything. Another spoiler, it started out pretty small. First off, you could only pay people with it, but now you can do pretty much everything you want in blockchain space. It's not always going to be the best solution. So most of these things you can just do with a database, but you could do it with blockchain. Who has a CryptoKitty still? Did you sell it off yet, or do you still have it? Ah, right, yeah. Well, it might be worth a fortune someday, right? So CryptoKitties was this collectible game, between quotes, because there wasn't really that much. You could create new cats, which is nice, and they're adorable. Even in this projector, it's adorable. If you click the start meow, you're pretty much asked to just give them money, and a lot of people did this. I have to admit, I was hovering over the yes, let's buy one button for a pretty long time, but I did not do this, which I'm proud of myself. And then afterwards, there's this, because this is really adorable. You can buy a cat and then perhaps sell it off later. This is less adorable. But it's really cool. This picture I made, I think a month ago. I'm not really sure how it is today. Did anybody know about this, the Etherbots? You buy a lot of different components. You buy these. What you see here is a combination of different components, and you can fight against each other and see which bot is the best. I think that's more of a game than CryptoKitties. But anyway, and yesterday I found this is a new. It's maybe not all that readable, but you used to have these click games online where you could click on a cookie and you get another cookie, or you would bake a cookie and you could create grandmas who were baking cookies for you. It was this game, if you were clicking all day, at some point you would have a gazillion cookies and you could feed the whole world with cookies. So it's this game that actually just plays itself at some point. Now I actually saw this with dragons. So these I actually bought for €5. I bought a lot of dragons here. I bought 948 ice dragons, and they're now creating eggs for me. And hopefully at the end of the week I can sell my eggs for a lot more than I put in. So this sounds and smells like a pyramid scheme. I also think it is. So, but a lot of people, well, at least a few people are paying money for this. Not that much. There's this site called State of the dApps. The fun thing there, it actually lists a lot of live dApps on the Ethereum framework. Most of these dApps are just pyramid schemes. Some of them, they also mention, I actually don't have it on the picture, but they mention this is a transparent pyramid scheme. We use this payoff, and if you enter, if you're low enough, you're probably not going to get anything. But if you entered last week, you would have got this and this and this for for your what you put in. So the interesting thing is that it's fun to see what's all transparent about it. So you can actually see how much money has gone in, how much money came out. And if you look up the stats online, some of these collectible games, like the CryptoKitties, a lot of money goes in, like millions of dollars. And there's this cityline.net. Maybe look it up later. I don't have it in the presentation. You could buy a city anywhere, and if you sold it off, you could make a profit because you could sell it off from what you bought it for. Say you bought it for $10, you could sell it off for between $10 and $20. And if then someone bought it from you for $20, they could sell it off between $20 and $30. So it would just go up and up and up and up. Unless you're, of course, the last one buying the city, then you're out of luck. But that's a lot of these things. So what does this say to me? We're still at the start of a lot of these things because usually, well, when a new platform comes, the first few apps, they're not going to survive. So I had a few fart apps on my first Android phone. I don't think they're around anymore. Also, a lot of soundboard apps were back then. I think that's pretty much the state that we're in now. So if you take the parallel with smartphones, there's the first few versions are live and you can run this. However, there's not really that great apps yet. They're not really dApps that you can use in a business setting. They're not really dApps that are going to be used on a daily basis. But I do think that once we hit a good dApp store or something where you can see all your dApps, then things will probably get an increase in adoption, and there will be a lot more dApps which are useful for enterprise and for just daily usage. That's a very long intro into what are dApps and why this is important. But I would like to give this to you anyway because I think, well, it's all about the apps up there. But the thing that I didn't put on the slide, but it's actually very important for this crowd, is that most of the programming here, it's not in Solidity, it's not in Ethereum, it's not about, that's only the core. It's one piece of the chain. But the biggest part is just in creating a great app, creating a great user experience, and just making sure things work together. So this is probably very common, right? So how do you create a new app? You just make sure there's a user interface, you make sure there's a backend, doesn't really matter what, could even be serverless nowadays, and you have to stick it together with an API or something else. How does this work for Ethereum development? Well, there's lots of different stuff that's going to replace these traditional ways. So IPFS, MetaMask, and Geth are things that are really new here. I'm just going to show what they are. IPFS is officially the Interplanetary File System. So they really love new names, right, with new stuff. I also like new names. And this is directly from their site. So they have, they say HTTP is inefficient and it's going to be, well, it's going to become in disuse very soon. I don't really know if that's sure, but it's one of the things that we're thinking about today, right? And humanity's history is deleted daily. This is something that's actually happening. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's actually happening. So we're losing a lot of information online. The Wayback Machine, I guess most of you know this, it also just loses things now and then, usually because things get updated with robots and robots.txt, you get removed from the Wayback Machine. Also with the new data regulation, you actually have to delete some data, so I'm not really sure if it's good or bad, but it's IPFS is an answer if you never want to lose something. And decentralization and the apps are dedicated to a backbone thing. It's more into the decentralization theme of IPFS. However, IPFS is very slow. So it says here to make the web faster, safer, and more open. Okay, but it's very slow at the moment, so it's barely usable, sadly. MetaMask. Who has MetaMask? Well, if you bought a CryptoKitty, you have MetaMask. Have some more hands? Great, great. Who does not know what MetaMask is? Is this the first thing? Ah, wow, awesome. Okay, MetaMask is really fun. You should. It's a plugin for Chrome. I think it's only for Chrome. Does anybody else know if it's for other platforms yet? Firefox. It's for Chrome and Firefox nowadays. Really great. So after this talk, please just go download it because it opens up your interaction with any dApp online. So if you go to CryptoKitties, you need MetaMask. If you go to Pyramid Scheme 123, you need MetaMask to contribute here. But I think also for the whole platform, it's really good. So you can load in your wallet for blockchain applications. You usually have to pay something, or you have to have a identifier, and that's your wallet. So in MetaMask, it's your wallet. So you get a personal identifier, and you can put money on there. And doesn't have to be, but you can. What did I put here? Right, yeah, it's a browser, and it works well with Web3. Web3 is actually the API to connect with smart contracts. We'll come to that in a second. So Geth, yes. Did anybody play Mass Effect? This, right? Yeah, a little bit. Okay, so it's not Geth from Mass Effect, sadly, because the first time I thought about it, it's like, oh, there's this alien overlords and they're gonna come help us. But no, it's the command line interface for running a full Ethereum node. I guess this is, well, if you're really working with the Ethereum mainnet, so if you're putting apps into production and you actually want to interact with the full Ethereum network, you're going to use Geth. For most of us developers, you're not going to use Dev because it's very heavy. The first time you download it, you're probably going to take 10 to 20 hours to actually sync the chain and get everything up and running. However, if you really want to do stuff like mine for Ether and actually make some money supporting the infrastructure, you need Geth or something comparable. There's this competitor called Parity. I think they're sort of on the same feature level nowadays. But, well, interacting with the mainnet, you need Geth. And yeah, we're not there yet. We need to create our first MVP. That's at least what I do and what we do at our team. We create a lot of tests, a lot of, some call it prototypes, we call it MVP, to just show what can happen if you put things out there. So for running things in development, we need a lot more stuff. So how's my time? Okay, I got slightly confused there. Only 20 more slides to go, so it's fine. So we need a web interface. You need to have to interact with your app at some point. We chose Vue. I invested a lot of time last year in React just before I started at this company, and now we're doing Vue. So now I know React and Vue, which is a positive thing, right? I think it's fun. It's fun to work with Vue, but I would say React or Angular actually work fine, and pretty much. Well, you can just interact with just HTTP and Web3 JS. What do we use for the API? Well, we use Express to just communicate with our traditional backend. So we still have, in most of the MVPs, we still have a database to store photos or location to photos, personal information, things that we just do not want to put on the public chain. For the smart contracts, we use Truffle. For the Ethereum node, we use Ganache CLI. So Truffle is pretty much a framework in which you can do a lot of things. I will show it later. And the Ganache CLI is well, I talked about Geth. Ganache CLI is the development version of Geth, and it works perfect for us. And for the database and the Nginx, it's not very important, but you can look it up. So Vue and Express, I guess. So I'm going to talk about Truffle and Ganache. What is Truffle? Truffle is the platform, the most popular development framework for Ethereum, and it's true. I've been using it for a bit more than a year now. In the early stages, it was more broke than it worked actually. So they put up updates very often, but usually those updates just messed up your whole code. So you were using this framework, you installed it, and you were using the older version of pretty much everything that they use, and then if they updated they would just throw away all your changes there. It wasn't really working for us, but nowadays it's pretty stable. I think 6-7 months ago they had a really good release, and since then it has been very stable. Also, it's 100% JavaScript, and it's open source, so it's really fun to actually see. Well, in the early days, it was fun to see what they did to screw up my code. Nowadays, I don't have to do that anymore, which is fine. And it's really easy. So that's I would say the major selling point here. If you want to create a dApp this afternoon, no, later this afternoon, after the after party even, and when you're really drunk, you can even do this, because even when you're drunk, this should work. And then you get, well, once you do this, you unbox this Metacoin, which is the really example contract they have. You get a lot of interesting things in this direct. Ganache, that's actually the Geth-like client, so it simulates the Ethereum mainnet, because Ethereum mainnet, depending on how busy it is, how much transactions are going, and how much you pay, you have to wait a long time for your confirmations. There are a lot of testnets on the Ethereum framework, but this is a lot easier. You can just run it on your local machine. It works really great. And well, that's sort of cheating, but you get instant responses. So if you click on, I'm going to do this later, if you click on vote, you just say, yes, congratulations, you voted. Well, if you interact with live dApps, you have to wait a few seconds, because it's pretty much async, right? And it works great with other tools we have. So now, when we have all these different components, I'm not going to go back, but it's a big list, and we had to put this all together, because in the beginning we were just creating these things, installing Ganache, installing Truffle, but then we got kind of tired of this, so we created a big repository which we now use, and we clone every time if we start a new project, or fork actually, and we use Docker and npm. npm, maybe it's a bit too big for what we're using. We're just using the startup scripts there. So if you can, npm run setup, npm run start, yeah, we have these things. If there's a way which we can do this better, I would love to hear this after the talk, because my package.json is like this now, and I'm not really sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Please tell me. For Docker, we are using Docker Compose to make sure that every component talks to each other. So I'm pretty sure that one is actually legal. This is how it looks. These are different components. So we have the UI on the left side, where we have the view in, and we have the smart contracts in the middle. Smart contracts is the Truffle framework. It also deploys things to our Ganache CLI, so there's some interaction there. And after that, we have the interaction between the MetaMask, which is not the UI, but MetaMask and the smart contracts. I will show this live in the demo if it works. And we use Nginx because we don't expose the UI and the API directly, but we expose it through Nginx, so you just have the port 80. Yeah, this one for the demo, we're not actually using the MongoDB, but for our usual MVPs, we have some more data we have to store that is not on the public chain. The next steps which we are going to do is going to make sure this actually runs on Kubernetes. I was trying this last week. We horribly failed at this because our Docker Compose has things that don't directly translate to Kubernetes. So we're going to create this in a very soon release, and we'll update you. We haven't ever done anything on the Ethereum mainnet. I think even a vote app or maybe another pyramid scheme to make OneUp rich again on the mainnet would actually work for us. So that's going to be the next step for us. Yeah, please download or clone or fork or like or whatever you want to do with our open source repository. I would say just have a look at it, see how it looks, give us some shaming on how I use my package.json, and improve where we can. Thanks.